The bodies lay in rows under the Guyanese sun, faces down in the mud, arms wrapped around children. 918 people dead in a single afternoon. For 3 days, no one could explain how it happened so fast. This wasn't a battle. It wasn't a plague. It was a religious community in the jungle that had been called a paradise. And the man who built it had convinced nearly 1,000 people to drink poison. The story begins 2 decades earlier in Indianapolis. Jim Jones was a young preacher with a gift. He could make a room believe anything. Interracial churches were illegal in Indiana in the 1950s. Jones opened one anyway. He preached socialism disguised as scripture. He staged faith healings. Chicken gizzards hidden in his hand, pulled out as tumors during services. By the late 60s, he'd moved his flock to California. First Redwood Valley, then San Francisco. People's temple grew. Politicians courted Jones. He delivered votes, hundreds of them, bussed in from his congregation. But behind the public image, former members were starting to talk. They described beatings, public humiliations, children struck with paddles in front of the congregation. Jones called it discipline. He called it love. In 1974, Jones had leased 3,800 acres of jungle in Guyana, South America. He called it an agricultural project. What he was really building was a fortress. By 1977, a magazine expose was coming. New West magazine had interviewed defectors, gathered affidavits of abuse. Jones didn't wait for publication. He fled to Guyana and took most of his congregation with him. Jonestown was sold as utopia, a socialist paradise in the jungle, free from American racism and capitalism. Families arrived by the plane load. They handed over their passports, their savings, their social security checks. The reality was different. Members worked the fields 11 hours a day in 100-degree heat. Meals were rice and gravy, sometimes beans. At night, Jim Jones's voice crackled over loudspeakers, preaching paranoia. The CIA was coming. Guards patrolled the perimeter. There was no way out. The nearest town was 7 miles through snake-infested jungle. Jones kept everyone's documents locked in his cabin, and he was rehearsing. Once, twice, sometimes 3 times a week, he'd wake the camp in the middle of the night. A drill, he called it. Revolutionary suicide. Everyone had to drink from a vat of grape-flavored liquid. Back in California, families were frantic. Letters from Jonestown sounded scripted. Phone calls were monitored. A group of relatives formed the Concerned Relatives. They accused Jones of holding people against their will. Ryan agreed. On November 14th, 1978, he flew to Guyana with a delegation. Aides, reporters, a cameraman from NBC. Jones tried to refuse them entry. Ryan invoked congressional authority. On November 17th, they walked into Jonestown. At first, it seemed peaceful. Children performed a welcome skit. Members gave tours. 918 people died on November 18th, 1978. The largest loss of American civilian life in a single event until, say, 304 of the dead were children, the youngest just 1-year-old. The bodies were so densely packed that initial counts drastically underestimated the total. Jones was unraveling. That evening, a member named Don Sly attacked Ryan with a knife in the pavilion. Ryan wasn't seriously hurt, but the message was clear. Control was slipping. Jones told the delegation to leave immediately. On the afternoon of November 18th, Ryan's group, along with the 16 defectors, walked to the Port Kaituma airstrip 6 miles away. 2 small planes waited on the dirt runway. They began boarding. Then a tractor and trailer emerged from the jungle. Temple members sat on the flatbed, rifles in hand. They opened fire. When it was over, 5 people lay dead. Congressman Ryan, 3 journalists, and 1 defector. 11 others were wounded. The shooters drove back into the jungle. In Jonestown, 6 miles away, Jim Jones gathered everyone under the pavilion. Loudspeakers crackled to life across the settlement. Everyone to the pavilion. Now, nearly 1,000 people assembled on the benches. Jones stood at the front, a microphone in his hand. His voice was eerily calm. "They'll torture our children," he said. "They'll torture our seniors. We can't let that happen." A woman's voice interrupted. Christine Miller, arguing they should flee to Russia instead. Jones dismissed her. "It's too late for that." A metal vat was wheeled to the front. Inside, grape flavor aid mixed with cyanide, sedatives, and tranquilizers. A nurse named Annie Moore stood beside it with a syringe. Jones gave the order, the children first. Parents lifted their babies. The nurses squirted the liquid into their mouths. The children convulsed within minutes. Cyanide causes agonizing muscle spasms, frothing, suffocation. Then the adults began to drink. Some willingly. Some were forced at gunpoint. Within 20 minutes, the pavilion floor was carpeted with bodies. Families lay intertwined, mothers clutching infants, couples holding hands. The cyanide worked exactly as Jones had promised during the rehearsals. Fast, final. But not everyone drank. At the edges of the compound, a handful of people ran. They crashed through the jungle undergrowth, branches tearing skin, gunshots cracking behind them. Jones had stationed armed guards around the perimeter. One woman, Odell Rhodes, hid beneath a building as the deaths unfolded. He heard the screams, the wailing, then silence. Hours later, he emerged to find the entire community dead. Grover Davis, a Jonestown resident, escaped into the jungle with his brother. They spent 3 days trekking through the rainforest toward the coast, drinking from streams, sleeping in trees. Jim Jones did not drink the poison. A medical examiner later found a single gunshot wound behind his right ear. The first outsiders to reach Jonestown were Guyanese troops, arriving the next morning. They walked into the pavilion and froze. Bodies everywhere. The smell unbearable. A U.S. Air Force recovery team flew in 2 days later. Their mission: identify and evacuate 900 bodies in tropical heat. The decomposition was already advanced. Medics wore gas masks, worked in 30-minute shifts. Many vomited. The initial count reported 408 dead. Then, as soldiers moved bodies, they found more underneath. Families had died on top of each other in layers. The final confirmed death toll, 918 people. At its peak, People's Temple claimed over 5,000 members across California. Nearly 1,000 followers relocated to Jonestown between 1977 and 1978. Jim Jones collected an estimated $65,000 per month from member donations and Social Security checks. But was it suicide? Survivors reported armed guards, syringes, screaming. The Guyanese coroner, Dr. Leslie Mutu, examined dozens of bodies on site. He found injection marks on many victims, suggesting they were forcibly injected. The FBI opened an investigation. Agents interviewed the 33 survivors, searched Jones's cabin, recovered audio recordings. One tape captured the final moments in the pavilion. Jones's voice calm, almost soothing, as people wailed in the background. That tape, known as the death tape, runs 44 minutes. You can hear Jones urging people to hurry, praising their courage. You can hear children crying. Investigators found something else in Jones's cabin. Millions of dollars in cash and gold stashed in suitcases. The People's Temple had collected members' life savings, Social Security checks, property deeds. A question haunted investigators. Why did so many people stay? Why didn't they leave Jonestown before it was too late? Survivors described a climate of absolute fear. Jones had informants everywhere. Letters smuggled out of Jonestown told of sleep deprivation, forced labor, starvation rations. Jones kept the community exhausted and isolated. No radios, no newspapers, no contact with the outside world. He controlled all information. Those who tried to escape faced brutal consequences. Deborah Layton, a former Temple member, fled in May 1978 and gave a sworn affidavit to the U.S. Embassy. She warned that Jones was planning a mass suicide. Could the massacre have been prevented? The State Department had received warnings for months. Families in California were pleading for investigations. Congressman Leo Ryan's trip was a direct response to those pleas. Some researchers believed the CIA was involved. Jones had connections to U.S. intelligence during his early ministry in Brazil. Jonestown sat near a strategic airstrip. What's certain is that Jonestown was not spontaneous. Jones had rehearsed the suicide scenario at least a dozen times before November 18th. Each rehearsal conditioned people to obey without question. By the time the real poison came, many believed it was just another drill. Others were too terrified to resist. Psychologists call it coercive control. a pattern of domination that traps victims through fear, isolation, and incremental demands. By the end, many members truly believed they were part of a socialist utopia under siege by enemies. Jones convinced them that the U.S. government was coming to destroy them, that death was the only honorable choice. In the weeks after the massacre, American newspapers ran photos of the bodies, the vats of poison, the empty compound. The word Jonestown became shorthand for blind obedience, for the dangers of charismatic leadership. Who were these people? Not brainwashed zombies. Many were educated, idealistic activists, teachers, nurses, social workers who joined the temple to fight racism and poverty. They believed they were building something better. 918 total deaths confirmed by U.S. military recovery teams. 304 victims were children under the age of 18. Only 33 Jonestown residents survived the massacre. By 1978, Jonestown had become a prison. Jones controlled every detail of daily life. 16-hour workdays in the fields, loudspeakers blaring propaganda through the night, public beatings for infractions. Mail was censored, passports confiscated. Jones was addicted to amphetamines, increasingly paranoid, convinced the CIA was coming to destroy his utopia. In November 1978, Congressman Leo Ryan received letters from families who believed their relatives were being held against their will. He decided to investigate. At first, the visit seemed to go well. Residents performed songs, served dinner, smiled for the cameras. But that night, a resident slipped NBC reporter Don Harris a note. It read, "Please help us get out of Jonestown." Jones was enraged. As the delegation and defectors boarded a dump truck to leave for the Port Kaituma airstrip, a man named Don Sly attacked Ryan with a knife, slashing his arm. Ryan survived. The delegation reached the airstrip. 2 small planes waited. As they began boarding, a tractor pulling a trailer emerged from the jungle. Armed People's Temple members opened fire. Congressman Ryan was shot more than 20 times. 5 people died on that airstrip, including Ryan, the only U.S. congressman ever assassinated in the line of duty. 11 more were wounded. Jones summoned everyone to the pavilion. Over the loudspeakers, his voice, slurred, frantic, apocalyptic. "The congressman is dead," he told them. "Troops will come. They'll torture our children, destroy everything we've built." A 44-minute audio recording captures what happened next. The death tape recovered from Jonestown. You can hear Jones ordering the poison prepared. A woman named Christine Miller stands and argues, "There has to be another way." Nurses mixed Flavor Aid, a cheap Kool-Aid knockoff, with cyanide, Valium, and chloral hydrate in a large metal vat. Children first. Mothers used syringes to squirt the liquid into babies' mouths. Within minutes, convulsions, foaming, death. Not everyone went willingly. Some people were held down and injected. Guards with crossbows ringed the pavilion. A few managed to slip away into the jungle, fewer than 90 out of more than 1,000. The death tape ends with chaos, screaming, crying, then an eerie silence. In less than an hour, 918 people were dead. 304 were children. The entire population of Jonestown, gone. The Guyanese government didn't have the resources to reach Jonestown quickly. It took a full day before soldiers arrived. U.S. military personnel were flown in to assist. Body bags ran out. The initial count was 408 dead. Then they realized bodies were stacked on top of each other, hidden beneath the first layer. It was the largest loss of American civilian life in a single event until September 11th, 2001. But the world struggled to comprehend it. How could 900 people drink poison? Each dose contained potassium cyanide mixed with Flavor Aid. Death occurred in 3 to 5 minutes from cellular asphyxiation. The compound stockpiled enough cyanide for 1,200 people. Survivor Leslie Wilson later said, "People didn't drink the poison because they believed in Jim Jones. They drank it because their children were already dying in front of them and they couldn't bear to watch." Autopsies revealed that many victims had needle marks between their shoulder blades, evidence of forced injection. The Guyanese coroner estimated that only about a third died willingly. The rest were murdered. One haunting detail: a sign hanging in the Jonestown pavilion read, "Those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat it." George Santayana's famous warning about history. In the compound, investigators found a metal box containing $500,000 in cash and checks. Jones had been stockpiling money from his followers' Social Security checks and paychecks. The Soviet government later confirmed that Jones had proposed mass emigration. But when the massacre happened, they denied any connection. The money, the escape plans, the Soviet contacts, all evidence that Jones knew Jonestown was unsustainable. For the survivors, the nightmare didn't end in Guyana. They returned to a United States that saw them as either victims or complicit cultists. Families of the dead blamed those who escaped for not stopping it. One survivor, Stephen Jones, Jim Jones's own son, was playing basketball in the Capitol when the massacre happened. He was spared only because he wasn't at the compound that day. The U.S. government investigated how Jones was able to operate unchecked for so long. He had powerful political connections. He delivered votes, campaigned for candidates, held rallies. Cross the cult leader. Politicians had accepted his money, his volunteers, his endorsements for years. When former members spoke up, officials dismissed their claims as disgruntled gossip. But Congressman Leo Ryan wasn't interested in political favors. In November 1978, he flew to Guyana with journalists and concerned relatives. He wanted to see Jonestown for himself. The delegation landed at Port Kaituma airstrip on November 17th. They rode a dump truck down muddy roads into the jungle. When they reached Jonestown, residents greeted them with songs and smiles. By the next morning, 16 people had secretly asked to leave with Ryan. Jones realized his paradise was crumbling. As the group headed back to the airstrip, a man attacked Ryan with a knife. At the airstrip, Ryan's group boarded 2 small planes. Then a tractor trailer arrived from Jonestown carrying armed temple guards. They opened fire. Ryan was shot over 20 times. 4 others died on the tarmac. 11 were wounded. Back in Jonestown, Jones knew it was over. He gathered the community in the central pavilion. A loudspeaker crackled to life. "We didn't commit suicide," he said. Armed guards surrounded the pavilion. A metal vat was wheeled to the front. It contained grape-flavored Flavor Aid mixed with cyanide, Valium, and chloral hydrate. Nurses filled paper cups. Jones told them to start with the children. Syringes were used to squirt the liquid into infants' mouths. Older children were told it was a loyalty test, like before. Within minutes, they began convulsing. Parents who hesitated were handed cups by guards. Some drank willingly. Jonestown covered 3,824 acres of leased Guyanese jungle. The pavilion where they died measured just 100 feet across. Only one physician remained, Dr. Larry Schacht, age 24. One woman, Christine Miller, stood up and challenged Jones. "I think there are too many people here who are standing with us," she said. "I'm not ready to die." Jones cut her off. "Die with dignity," he snapped. The tape captures applause, screams, Jones preaching over the chaos. "Mother, mother, mother, please," he repeated. "Lay down your life with your child. This is nothing to cry about." Bodies piled up on the pavilion floor. A few members hid in the jungle or pretended to drink. 33 people survived. One man, Stanley Clayton, slipped away during the confusion and ran into the forest. He heard screams behind him for hours. Jim Jones was found dead with a gunshot wound to the head. Whether he pulled the trigger himself or had someone do it remains unknown. The Guyanese army arrived the next morning. The scene was incomprehensible. Bodies lay in neat rows, families holding each other. The jungle heat had already begun decomposition. Soldiers wore masks but still vomited. Identifying the dead took weeks. The U.S. Air Force flew the bodies to Dover Air Force Base in Delaware. It was the largest civilian airlift of casualties in American history. Refrigerated trucks lined the runway. Investigators found over $7 million in Jonestown bank accounts. Jones had been siphoning temple donations for years, hiding cash in foreign accounts while telling followers they lived in poverty. Survivors testified that drills had prepared them. Jones had held white nights, practiced suicide rituals where members drank what they were told was poison. Each time, they woke up the next morning. The term drinking the Kool-Aid entered the language, but it's a bitter irony. Most of Jonestown didn't drink willingly. They were coerced, threatened, injected. Armed guards blocked the exits. This wasn't mass suicide. Congressional hearings followed. Politicians who had once embraced Jones now distanced themselves. Photos of him shaking hands with governors and mayors were quietly removed from archives. The system that had enabled him faced no real accountability. Only one person was ever charged. Larry Layton, a temple member who participated in the airstrip attack, was convicted of conspiracy and aiding and abetting murder. He served 18 years. No one else faced trial. Jonestown's ruins were swallowed by the jungle. The pavilion rotted. Vines consumed the cabins. Locals avoid the site, calling it cursed. Occasionally, a researcher visits and finds rusted syringes, broken cups. The families of the dead struggled for closure. Many had been estranged, cut off by Jones's orders. They never got to say goodbye. Some victims were buried in mass graves because no one claimed them. Jonestown endures as a warning. Charisma is not wisdom, devotion is not safety, and isolation is the cult leader's greatest weapon. 918 people followed Jim Jones into the jungle. 33 walked out. The tape recorder kept running until the batteries died. In the final minutes, you can hear Jones whispering to someone, then silence. The last sound is the jungle. The insects returned. The world moved on.